Before we start this list, keep in mind we're not saying that the people on this list aren't great, and we're not saying that they're truly awful people, although some of them are pretty awful, as you'll see. But this video will show you that even the most influential people in history aren't perfect by any means. With that being said, here are 5 dark sides to historical legacies that you may not have known about.
5.
Steve Jobs. It goes without saying that the legacy Steve Jobs left behind following his passing in 2011 is simply astonishing. Just looking through the man's work history, from being the founder of Apple to helping with the creation of Pixar to even creating the most iconic range of phones, tablets, and MP3 devices out there, the iPhone, iPad, and iPod. On top of it all is his uncanny ability to hype up a product like it was the next best thing to sliced bread. He could quite possibly sell ice to an Eskimo and even keep the change left over. The man was a marketing machine. Jobs was so influential that biopics were made about him almost as soon as he died, and many people still extol his virtues. Despite all of his accomplishments, however, Jobs was not a very nice guy. In fact, a lot of people who previously worked with him would dub him as a snake. For starters, when it came to groundbreaking products like the iPod, iPhone, MacBook, and all the other gubbins he would hype up on stage, he essentially did none of the work. The various groups of engineers behind the scenes designed and create these videos while taking the credit all for himself. Now, that sounds like nothing new. I mean, every company needs a face, and Jobs was that face. But how about before all the fame and fortune came into his life? Surely he wasn't a snake in the early days of his career, right? Wrong. Jobs once cheated his friend Steve Wozniak out of money back when they were first working together. Sure, the money he cheated his friend out of wasn't even that much, but Jobs did it out of petty greed. Wozniak was hurt later on when he found out, never understanding why his once friend would be so awful to others. But that is nothing compared to this. With an organization like Apple, you'd think they could do a lot of good in the world, right? I mean, they're pretty much sitting on stacks and stacks of cash that'll most likely never get spent. So why not give some of it to charity? Couldn't hurt, right? Well, apparently Jobs was very anti-charity, as he allegedly created a standing policy that Apple would never donate to charity, just so the company could make as much money as possible.
4.
Benjamin Franklin. Next up, we have one of America's founding fathers, Benjamin Franklin. Now, Franklin acted mainly as a diplomat, forging connections across the pond to help the fledgling colonies in their revolt. He was also known for his inventive mind, as he was able to create the lightning rod, bifocals, and several other seemingly unrelated ideas. His impact on the United States, and even the world, thanks to his inventions, is an absolutely great one. Unfortunately, it isn't all sunshine and rainbows when it comes to Benjamin Franklin's legacy. Now, what we're about to say isn't going to sound like such a bad thing, but just bear with us. Okay, are you ready for this? Okay, Benjamin Franklin wasn't a very nice person. We know, how could we say something so horrible? But in all seriousness, Franklin was actually quite a deviant. It is believed that his actions are because of his very well-documented upbringing, as his childhood wasn't exactly pleasant. It is because of this upbringing that he became quite a vindictive competitor that would do anything to see his rivals fail. And we don't mean fail in a competitive sense. We mean he did everything in his power to ruin his rivals' lives, such as using his newspaper company to spread slanderous lies about his competitors. He once went so far as to convince everyone his biggest rival was dead, despite the man's insistence otherwise. So yeah, despite all he's done for the world, he was most definitely a shady individual who took pleasure in ruining other people's lives.
3.
John F. Kennedy. Good old John F. Kennedy. JFK, as both the leader of the United States and as a person, was a down-to-earth guy who was loved by almost everyone. Essentially, this is the closest thing you'll get when it comes to getting a rock star in the White House. JFK was quite simply a charming guy who had the uncanny ability to get almost any lady he wanted. I mean, if we're being frank here, it's pretty common knowledge that JFK was quite the hound. But this went beyond being a charming act, as some people don't know the extent of his philandering. Some stories claim he tried to sleep with a different woman every single day of the week if he could, and would claim this desire was partly the fault of the medications he took for Addison's disease. But here's the thing, he was married. The reason this is strange is because many people figured that his relationship with his wife Jackie was an open one, where they could both see different people while still maintaining their marriage. Many people actually thought that Jackie Kennedy was perfectly fine with this, but that wasn't the case at all. In fact, multiple sources claim that she was absolutely crushed and hurt by his behavior. Rumors suggest that she not only threatened divorce, but was once bought out by his father to the tune of $1 million to keep her from putting the family through an embarrassing divorce.
2.
Winston Churchill. We all know Winston Churchill for his efforts in helping the United Kingdom get through dark times during the 1930s and 1940s, and that alone does make him a historical political figure, but he was actually a really awful person. What makes him such a terrible person was his response to Mahatma Gandhi's request to free India from British rule. Churchill, being the leader of Britain, didn't like the idea of losing power over India. In response, he would call for Gandhi's execution shortly after he rose to prominence in the late 1920s. Bit of an overreaction, right? But Churchill's tyranny didn't end with his hatred for Gandhi. No, this extended towards the entire nation of India, as he would openly admit that he didn't like anyone of that heritage. Even the years after leading an entire country, he certainly didn't mellow out. In fact, he got worse and worse. Even back in 1943, in between rousing speeches about never surrendering, he refused to help India survive a severe famine that ultimately took the lives of around 3 million people. Churchill blamed the famine on those who lived in India themselves, saying it was all their fault for quote-unquote breeding like rabbits. Wow, that is truly awful. He may have been a great man in terms of leading a country through dark times, but he was, without a doubt, a detestable human being.
1.
Mahatma Gandhi. Speaking of Mahatma Gandhi, despite the legacy he left behind, there is most certainly a dark side to it that's never been focused on. Now, let's get one thing straight first. His work as an activist was simply phenomenal, as he at the time was one of the few activists who preached love and peace, and as we previously mentioned, spearheaded Indian independence from Britain. Through his letters and words, some scholars and historians saw him as a paragon of good in the world, and he was, but only to a certain extent. Yes, his message of peace and love was a powerful one, but he was somewhat of a hypocrite. Gandhi didn't always practice what he preached, especially regarding chastity. While he would constantly remind married couples to take a cold bath when they felt sexual urges, the man himself carried on an affair with his physician, Sushila Nayar, for many years. Yes, his message to the world was a positive one, and it's a good thing that we only look at the good side of Gandhi. If we constantly drew focus on the adulterous aspects of Gandhi's life, it might render his powerful message of love and peace meaningless. He was a good person, but at the same time, he had his flaws. And that's our list. Did we leave any out that you know about? Let us know in the comments section below. Please remember to subscribe and tap that bell button so you'll be notified when we've uploaded new videos for you. Thanks for watching.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more elite facts.